That's Mike Portnoy, the drummer for progressive metal legends Dream Theater and 7 other bands. His maximalist approach to drumming add a lot to the calculated chaos to Dream Theater's unique blend of classical, symphonic, jazz rock, thrash metal, hard rock, adult-orientated alternative power ballads, and their overall eclecticism. He had also been with the band from 1985 to 2010. This is the story of a breakup, and the lessons people learn with time to mend fractured friendships. I just want to say hi for those who are new to the channel. What's up? Hi, how's it going? If you like what you see so far, I would really love it if you clicked on that like button and shared it with some of your friends, as it really does make a huge difference to help this channel out. And before we continue, I'm aware that most of you on this channel probably don't know much about Dream Theater or prog music. So let's take a step back. What is prog? Progressive rock and progressive music for me can be defined as music that takes elements from classical music from the West and from other parts of the world, often with virtuosic playing and solos. Sometimes inspired by jazz, but it's whatever sounds cool and whatever allows musicians to experiment with song structures. Songs are often long with multiple sections like long intros, verses, choruses, a long bridge with extended instrumental sections with themes and motifs, and oftentimes in service to a concept album. Bands like The Who and Pink Floyd really inspired the iconic 2000s alternative and pop rock albums like Green Day's American Idiot and MCR's The Black Parade. Prog is kind of broad and difficult to explain with words. I think you just gotta sit down and spend some time getting immersed in these giant worlds that these artists create. Bands like the aforementioned Pink Floyd, Yes, Rush, and King Crimson are great ways to dive into the subgenre, and great examples of bands that sound very different from album to album. The Mars Volta, Porcupine Tree, and Black Midi are examples of a more aggressive and modern style of prog. I really love prog metal, which has the aggression that I love when listening to heavy guitar riffs and guitar solos that shred harder than cheese on pizza, and pummeling animalistic double bass drums, while satisfying my interest in classical music, concertos, symphonos, and sonatos. Bands like Between the Buried and Me, Opeth, Tool, Cynic, and Meshuggah are all very different examples of prog. And the longest running band of the bunch, Dream Theater, is the torchbearer of the old guard influences. Bands like Rush and Kansas, hard rock bands like The Who, and metal bands like Metallica. DT is a major reason why this subculture is alive and kicking today. Who are DT? Dream Theater is a fun band and one of my favorite bands ever. Throughout the years, me and the fan community have received a lot of ridicule for loving them, which kind of sucks, but their music has brought me back to a calm and curious state of mind. From their cheesy and introspective pop power ballads to their labyrinthian symphonic epics, DT has influenced my music tastes since I was 14. At the time, I was just starting to get into metal with bands like Linkin Park, Metallica, and Maiden. The most intimidating thing about prog and Dream Theater for a lot of people are the song lengths, which is understandable. We often feel like we don't have the time to sit down and enjoy something because our minds are often busy and anxious about what to do next. But there's a beauty to listening to artists fully express their creativity for long stretches of time, to just jam out and shred that cheese all over my crusty body. Yum, yum, yum. More than any band, Dream Theater have these highly catchy melodies with James LaBrie's gender-fluid soaring vocal range that enables him to sing from the perspectives of male and female characters in these album-length stories, along with blunt, simple, and memorable lyrics like "Life is short, so learn from your mistakes, and stand behind the choices that you make. From the introspective, the answer lies within." And the hilariously sinister "The Count of Tuscany, now let me introduce my brother, a bitter gentleman, historian, sucking on his pipe, distinguished accent, making me uptight, no accident." John Petrucci's Olympian, lightning speed shredding, balanced out with some David Gilmour melodicism that sound like they work perfectly in an 80s arena rock, take out your lighters and wave them in the air type situation. Jam Young's expertise in literally every bass technique, slap, pop, harmonics, tapping, A very heavy sound for such a quiet man. Jordan Rudess's jaw-dropping wizardry on the keys that can be equally beautiful and random and hilarious. And then there's Mike Portnoy's signature double bass tom fills More's More approach with double-ass, double-digit headed monster kits.
Takes 2 seats. I actually grew a second ass for this album.
Watching him play is like watching a curious kid play with every toy in the toy box. He has this big yet down-to-earth energy that's undeniably infectious, that makes his parts fun to listen to and fun to watch. In his words, he's not a thinker, he's a feeler.
You know, people think I am this overthinker, especially because all this really progressive music I've been a part of, but I'm not a thinker, I'm a feeler. Like, I don't want to overthink a drum fill or a part. Like, I want it to feel good and feel natural. And the same goes with, you know, the fills. You know, I want it to feel it. I want to feel the moment. And that's more important to me than the technique or, you know, writing something that's so
structured.
Yeah, I like having the open-ended kind of approach and being able to feel the music.
I wanted to learn about like playing giant drum kits and odd time signatures. So when I went off to Berkeley, I met John Petrucci and John Mayung, and we put together the band that became Dream Theater. I remember the specific day we met, and we got lucky because we met real quick. We met, I think, maybe the second week of school, like September '85. The two of those guys went to Berkeley together they lived in Kings Park, Long Island. I lived in Long Beach, Long Island, which is about a half hour south of where they grew up. People from all over the world at Berkeley. So for three guys to like be from Long Island and connect and be into the same music was pretty amazing. But I remember I was wearing a Talus t-shirt. That's Billy Sheehan's old band back then, before he joined the David Lee Roth band.
Yeah, okay.
So I was wearing a Talus shirt, and I was in one of the practice rooms drumming, and they could tell that I was like into like heavy stuff, and I was jamming on like Maiden tunes and Rush tunes. And they came up to me and they're like, "Man, you've heard of Talus? You know who Billy Sheehan is?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then we started talking, and we had common influences. You know, they were huge Rush fans, they were huge Maiden fans, and we just started jamming. And we were like total outcasts back then, because back then at Berkeley, it was nothing but jazz heads, and we were like the only kids that were like listening to that kind of stuff, Priest and Maiden and Metallica, and yes, we started jamming 6 hours a day, every single day, and just, you know, getting to know each other, and started writing original music, and that was pretty much the origins of Dream Theater.
So they decided to drop out and form the band Majesty, which later became Dream Theater. I'm not going to go into the chronological story of how they got into their classic lineup, but what you need to know is that they recruited James LaBrie by 91, 6 years later, and Jordan Rudess in 99, around 8 years after that. Which means it took 14 years of struggle, effort, broken hearts, and creativity to end up with the classic lineup that we have today as of this video. And the chemistry between these five guys are just electrifying. For a whole decade between 99 and 2009, they had these incredible run of albums, starting with their magnum opus, Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from a Memory, a sort of sequel to their signature song Metropolis Part 1, and yes, they included Part 1 in the title as a joke that they had to pay off years later. From the 1991 classic Images and Words, the massive symphonic mental health odyssey, and my personal favorite 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence from 2002, a dark and heavy train of thought that following year. 2005's iconic fan favorite Octavarium. By the way, these albums transition into each other, so listening to them back to back is a really cool trip. The gloomy and underrated Systematic Chaos in 2007, and the gloomier and also underappreciated Black Clouds and Silver Linings from 2009. From 6 Degrees onward, Mike Portnoy had written a 57-minute suite about the 12-step program and his experience with seeking help and battling alcoholism and drug abuse. It's comprised of The Glass Prison, This Dying Soul, The Root of All Evil, Repentance, and The Shattered Fortress. Besides the hypnotic and sobering Repentance, which featured guest vocals from friends of the band, the suite is some of the band's most aggressive material, with musical ideas that get introduced and reincorporated over the span of 7 years. It's honest, heartbreaking, it makes you just want to get up and jump off of stuff, you know? The band was on this really cool trajectory. Despite sounding moodier, they still had some really cool ideas. I mean, to open an album with A Nightmare to Remember and incorporate blast beats for the first time ever in 24 years into the journey, that's pretty awesome. Then things took an unexpected turn.
Biggest thing is that it's heartbreaking. I don't know if people understand all this. It's not only we've been a band, but we literally have been a family. Like, we've been through everything together in our lives, in each other's wedding parties, and our kids all know each other and their friends, and we've had parents get sick and pass away and been to funerals. We've been through everything together. So the biggest feeling about it is like, it's heartbreaking, it's disappointing. Like I said, this is a family. We love Mike. This isn't what we wanted. We never expected this. And now here we are. And, change happens. It might not be what we want or expect.
All of us really felt strongly about, we got to continue doing what we love and working together. There was no stopping us.
25 years, it was my baby from formation to all the way, the level that the band was at that point 25 years later. And that was a lot of perseverance to get there. So to walk away from it was one of the hardest things I'll ever have to do, really. But it's something I had to do, because after 25 years, and during that time, I was always the most hands-on guy in the band. I think since then they've gone on to delegate things and share things. But, at that stage, I was the one that was overseeing the merchandise and the fan clubs and the websites and the music and the lyrics and the melodies and the production and all that stuff. And it was exhausting. And I just needed a break. I was burnt out on, all of that. If I had stayed, I probably would have been resentful for all the things that I was not able to do, and because I was starting to feel trapped, and they wanted me to commit to a certain date to start the next record, and I just wasn't ready, and it became a Mexican standoff, really. And I went with my heart.
Mike Portnoy was one of the founding members of the group. He wrote a lot of the lyrics and music and produced and also represented the band in interviews as the de facto leader. So when Mike left, I honestly thought that was the end of Dream Theater. During his leave from 2010 to 2023, he had been a part of many collaborative projects and credits: Sons of Apollo, Neil Morse Band, Transatlantic, Metal Allegiance, The Winery Dogs, Flying Colors, and also be this hired gun for Avenged Sevenfold and Twisted Sister. Back in Dream Theater, the guys were just at a loss and was just trying to rebuild their band after this breakup. So their marketing team put on this reality TV show thing that was like The Bachelor meets Metallica's Some Kind of Monster, where they auditioned several potential drummers like Mike Mangini, Achilles Priester, Derek Roddy, Marco Miniman, Peter Wildower, Thomas Lang, and Virgil Donati. All these guys are amazing, and they eventually decided on Mike Mangini. From what I remember, the community was generally very warm towards this idea. Well, because more Dream Theater means more good times, and they picked the right person to handle the job. For the next 13 years, they would establish themselves as a different family. JP would take on more responsibility as a producer on these albums, 5 in total that were all interesting and unique in their own ways, and also were quite ambitious. Other responsibilities would be distributed amongst the members to make this new dynamic work. To be very honest, I just didn't connect with any of these songs. There are some really cool fleeting moments, and even though I'm not into the astonishing, I appreciate the efforts they put into making another grand concept album with James playing all these characters and pushing the limits of what he can convey with his voice. I can't deny the musicianship and the chemistry, but it's like eating congee when I really just prefer to eat some soup. I admit that I have a lot of personal attachment to Mike Portnoy. Being in this band, His playing and chemistry in these songs have influenced me for more than half my life. I would air drum to Metropolis Part 1 and A Nightmare to Remember. In fact, I got my first drum kit because I liked playing A Nightmare to Remember so much. I would work out, commute to school, cook, shower, fall asleep to these songs. This band often makes me not think about how sad my life can be for long stretches of time, and for 13 years, it felt like this band wasn't for me anymore, and it wasn't anyone's fault. The moment Mike Portnoy left, there was a lot of unresolved tension between him and James that was noticeable on camera during some of these late-era documentaries. I'm not them, so I don't know the details, and it's probably not a good idea to linger on the reasons that led to their relationship disintegrating, but it was really tragic seeing these guys lose love and respect for each other. It must have been really uncomfortable since the families of these members in the band were all intertwined over the years. For 13 years, James and Mike didn't talk to each other. When Mike was 17, his health teacher at school taught him the meaning of carpe diem, to seize the day, and to appreciate the time we have left on this earth. How we never know when our time will come.
I have it right here. I'll tell you the quick story about that. It was November 16th, 1984, and I was a senior in high school, and a teacher in class was giving a lesson about carpe diem, seize the day, and he was saying basically how life could change at any moment. Appreciate life while you have it. And the teacher gave this lesson, and he said, look, when you get home tonight, give your mom and your dad a hug and a kiss, tell them you love them, because you never know. And I got home that night, and I was getting ready to go out with my friends, and my mom was getting ready to get on a plane to go to Atlantic City. And I was running out the door with my friends, and then I remembered the Carpe Diem lesson. I turned around, came back in the house, and gave my mom a big hug and a kiss, and told her I loved her. And she was like taken aback, like, wow, that's nice. Where'd that come from? I was like, I just want you to know I love you. And that was the last time I ever saw her, because she was killed in a plane crash that night on her way to Atlantic City. And that's why I have this tattooed here. You know, you never know when it's your time, or even more importantly, when it's somebody else's time. I just heard somebody say this, when my friend David Z just died last month. At his funeral, his brother said something that was really profound, and I loved it. And he said, rather than spending each day like it's your last day on earth, spend each day like it's somebody you love's last day on earth. And that completely changes the way that you think about things, to appreciate every day, not only for yourself, but because somebody you love may not be here tomorrow, and that's even more important. That's the life lesson, I guess, for me, that I live by, or I try to live by. I try to not only appreciate the people in my life, but appreciate the time I have on earth to do things, and that's why I want to make as much music as I can and play with as many different people as I can. And I love my wife and my daughter and my son and my dog, and we only have today. You can't change yesterday. You can't predict tomorrow. There's only the here and now.
Shortly after his mom's death in '84, he wrote a song about her and the grieving process. The song was called A Change of Seasons, a 23-minute somber meditation with as much dream theater flair as you would assume. It was recorded in '95 with James on vocals, perfectly expressing the vulnerability and pain, with lines like,
"You hypocrites, and I don't need your sympathy to get me through the day. Seasons change, so can I. Hold on, boy, no time to cry. I'm tired of strength, I'm climbing down. One let the best way away.
It's been many, many years now of kind of rekindling my relationships with the guys, starting with John Petrucci. I don't know, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago or so. We just reconnected. Our families, his wife and my wife were in a band together even before, we knew our wives.
Yeah.
Our kids have grown up together. My daughter and John Petrucci's daughter shared an apartment together in New York for the last 5 years.
Nice.
So, the families were still close. So John and I inevitably reconnected and on a personal level. And I guess really it really started to gain some traction during COVID lockdown, because I couldn't tour and Dream Theater couldn't tour. So John decided he wanted to do a solo album, and he asked me to play on it.
And for me, listen, Mike and I grew up together. I met him at Berkeley. We were teenagers. We were 18. We're in a band together 25 years. Our families have been friends forever. Our wives were in the same band together. All our kids grew up together and are friends. There's a relationship there that doesn't just end.
Right.
And to be able to play music with my friend again after 10 years of not doing that is really cool for the both of us,
Yeah.
And I selfishly get to live in this kind of duality where my solo music, I get to have Mike Portnoy play drums, and in Dream Theater I get to have Mike Mangini play drums, and it's like I have two of the most incredible drummers on the planet I get to play with.
A few months later, we did an LTE album with John and Jordan, so that brought 3 of us back together. And then I think the final piece was me reconnecting with James LaBrie, because James and I hadn't spoken for over a decade. And, I went to see Dream Theater play in New York, I guess around 2022. And that was my first time seeing James in over a decade.
The thing is, what was sad about that whole duration where Mike and I didn't see eye to eye is that when Dream Theater started and Images and Words and Awaken, that Mike and I were best friends, way back. And then we started to fall apart for several reasons, but it doesn't matter. The details don't matter. It's just that we started to have a problem with one another.
Right.
And so about 2 hours before the New York show, my manager texted me and he said, listen, Mike's going to be there tonight. He wants to come back and see you. He wants to make amends. To my manager, I said, you're putting this in my lap 2 hours before I play in front of how many thousands of people in New York? Are you kidding me? And so I thought about it. You know what? I went for a walk and I walked the streets and I started thinking about it. And I said to myself, you know what? Enough is enough. There's enough hate in this world. There's enough freaking negativity in this world. If Mike wants to come and see me and make amends, then I should be receptive. And I got in touch, and John Petrucci was also there. So he said, Mike wants to know if he can come back and say hi to you, and like I just said. And I said, you know what? Yeah, let him know for sure. Tell him to come back and see me after the show, and we'll chat. And that's what we did. We chatted. We had a good long discussion. We made up and gave each other a hug and did a picture together. And when I was out on stage before all that, I just said, hey, I just want to let you guys know that Mike Portnoy's here. Hey, welcome.
I've been pointing at this guy all night in this. Anyways, welcome.
And literally, I'm not exaggerating, within 5 seconds of seeing each other, it was hugs, kisses, and it was like any of the drama and bullshit that happened during all of those years of the split, it just melted away immediately. Then it started to really feel like, maybe this is inevitable. It just seems like we're in the right place and the right time at the stages of our lives. All those years of Dream Theater, we were in our 20s and 30s and 40s, and now here we are most of us in our 50s and some of the members in their 60s. And
Yeah.
it just seems like, you know, life is too short to not be with the people you love and play the music that is part of your life and
Yeah.
your heart and soul.
And so, you know, the thing is that you get to a point in life where, you know, you gotta, you know, you hope that you can't carry around that. Don't carry around hate. Don't carry around negativity. We carried it around far too long, to be as far as I'm concerned, you know, and it didn't serve any purpose. It just served freaking division. It was very divisive and very damaging.
Yeah.
And you know, it's great. You know, hey, listen, just the other day, Mike texted me and he was like, "Hey James, just want to congratulate you on the Grammy. You freaking well deserved this. You know, you and the band, awesome. Kudos, bravo, all this stuff." And you know, and I text Mike back and I said, "Frick, man, Mike, that's very admirable of you." I said, "In my book, that's pretty damn cool for you to say these things." And he said, "Awesome, man, love it." So, you know, it's great to be back. Like, we're talking to one another, we're chatting and all that stuff. And that's the kind of world that I want to live in, as opposed to negativity, hate, and freaking, you know, it's just not worth it.
Over the years, Mike Portnoy has learned to be a better team player, to let go of some of that control and to just let it be, and to come together to a healthy state with a little help from his friends, who have also experienced life and gotten wiser in parallel to his experience, and to better balance responsibilities among his bandmates. Instead of Mike being the quote-unquote leader, everyone carries that weight, according to the 12-step program, similar to surrendering oneself to a higher power, not necessarily the power of a god, but more so to the power of someone who has more clarity and control than you do. To overcome addiction and destructive impulses, one needs to reach out and to find help in others, or else you're gonna just go nowhere, man. Okay, enough Beatles references. I will get back to the video now. Yellow Submarine. The announcement that Mike Portnoy would be reuniting with Dream Theater was a bit unexpected, at least for me, since I hadn't paid too much attention to their music since 2009. The classic lineup of Dream Theater was together for a whole year and even recorded a whole album. Those sneaky bastards. Mike Mangini was caught off guard too and was shocked to hear about it, but he gave a masterclass in how to accept change with understanding and respect. James described his response as classy. He stepped down from his role that he had been in for 13 years, and the reunion was solidified. Not enough has been said about how much of a badass Mike Mangini is, so thank you, Mike Mangini, for letting this happen. We can all learn from him. Because they wanted to get the raw energy and sound of the five of them being in the room together after all these years, the first song they played was Night Terror, the first single and full song on Parasomnia. It's an unabashed return to that sound that fans have felt so much nostalgia for. And that's okay, because that's what you get when these guys get in the room together and jam. Mike Portnoy mentioned on his Instagram, exactly 1 year ago to this day, February 7th, 2024, the five of us stood in the same room together for the first time in well over a decade. We then spent a majority of the time creating our first album together in 15 years. Today we can finally share it all with you. We could not be prouder or more excited about what we created. We were so inspired being together again and feel we really rose to the occasion to create something special. Parasomnia represents everything that is classic Dream Theater, mixing tastes of the past with visions of the future. We hope you enjoy the sonic experience. The album itself is also very enjoyable and has been warmly received by fans. It takes the signature DT symphonic approach. It's a cinematic thematic concept album a la Dark Side of the Moon. Themes are introduced in one track and return in another. Someone in the forums, of course, has compiled a list of all the ideas in the album and how they develop and return, which I'll link in the description. It's got flavors of Metropolis Part 2, the way it opens with the sound of someone closing a window and getting ready to sleep. The riffs are heavy as f***, especially in that 8-string riff in the opening overture in the Arms of Morpheus, which was the last thing the band wrote for the album to wrap up all the ideas in a neat little bow. Broken Man is about a man imprisoned by their war trauma and going through his sleep terrors, something that my family goes through. Dead Asleep has all these great moments of Mike turning the beat around and morphing the groove. It's like Uno reverse, but Prog. It's about a man sleepwalk murdering his wife, but maybe not accidentally, teehee. Midnight Messiah is my favorite one of the bunch and was also released as a single. And Portnoy wrote lyrics to this one, after being encouraged by John Petrucci to welcome him back to the band experience, with lyrics referencing previous DT lyrics. According to Mike, the story is about a dude who's an immortal super being, while in real life is completely uncomfortable with himself, who is obsessed about living in his dreams permanently. It's like Inception, but Prog. Bend the Clock, not Bend the Clock, is this Pink Floyd meets Journey ballad, and is a really good contrast between the dark tracks surrounding it. It's got this epic, comfortably numb type guitar solo similar to the Best of Times from Black Clouds and Silver Linings, which I'm always down for. The Shadow Man incident is this 19-minute Imperial March with this Israeli sounding vibe, which features Jordan Rudess' greatest work in Dream Theater ever, with that amazing Latin solo which kinda just whips me into shape. They plan to tour the entire album after 2025, jokingly egging fans to show up in pajamas. I think we should do it, cause that would be so funny. Because of the power of Dream Theater's music, I was able to connect with 2 people on Reddit and meet up and befriend each other, and ended up going to the Dream Theater show together in Toronto. Let's go over to Snackers Square to get their reaction to the show. Take it away, Snackers Square.
Hi, this is Snackers from the past, future, different timeline. It was really good. One thing that is apparent is that people who are not in a general audience just are so lifeless. Holy shit, for like 3 hours they just kind of sat there, didn't really move. Nobody was really like jiving, you know. And then when they played their encore for Pull Me Under, I got out of my seat and I was like, come on everybody, let's dance. And I was promptly ignored, which was embarrassing, but whatever. I headbanged and danced and shouted and sang along, and it was a wonderful time. James accidentally, his mic fell onto the crowd and it hit somebody in the forehead. Justice for forehead guy. I hope he's okay. Back to Snackers Prime.
Thanks, Snackers Square. Wow, you are so cute. So, as I end this video, I just wanted to say thank you for stopping by, and just how amazing and weird that our paths have crossed right at this very moment that you're watching this. Dream Theater is not for everyone and isn't exactly an easy band to get into. If you haven't heard them before and you're listening to this message right now, thank you for being so curious and patient to make it to this point. Leave a comment on what your favorite thing about Dream Theater is so far on this journey. Have you experienced any strong memories while listening to them? Whether you're an older listener or a newer listener, welcome to the Dream Theater family. The biggest lesson I learned from this is how time heals wounds and makes people more mature and conscious of hate. Life is short, so learn from your mistakes and stand behind the choices that you make. You've got the future on your side. You're gonna be fine now. I know whatever you decide, you're gonna shine. Don't let a day go by in doubt, because the answer lies within, and all you need is love. I'm Snackers Prime, and thanks for watching.